Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Ben Thompson. Today, I am here with Randy. This will be a podcast focused on a tinnitus success story. Randy has worked with Treble Health for at least a few months now with another audiologist on our team. And we're going to talk about Randy's story from beginning, middle to where he is today. This will be fun, so stay with us because at the beginning, I'm going to go through a series of 10 quick questions to understand what kind of tinnitus, what kind of history does Randy have. And then he's going to explain about who he is, his history being an airline pilot, and then what he learned of going through this process of habituation and improving tinnitus with a combination of one-on-one counseling and medical devices, tinnitus maskers, hearing aids. So Randy, welcome. We're going to jump right into it, and then we'll get into your introduction right after, okay? So where have you heard tinnitus? Is it one ear, both ears, right, left?
Both ears, about the same in both, mostly.
Okay. And what does your tinnitus sound like? Is it high pitch, low pitch, hissing, or something else?
It's a high pitched, steady ring.
Okay. And when did your tinnitus start? When did it become bothersome? And do you know what caused it?
I've had tinnitus for probably 15 years at a real low level that I just, if I went looking for it, I could find it. But it was March 13th. It just, in the afternoon, I just happened to I was doing something and I just noticed thinking, wow, that's really loud. I don't know the cause necessarily of I didn't do anything different that day. It just started.
Okay. And do you have difficulty hearing people in your everyday life? Have you ever had a hearing test? What did the hearing test show?
Yeah, I have. My wife and I talked about going and getting a hearing test, through the years because I started missing stuff. So yeah. And then when COVID happened, we all started wearing masks. I learned that I was a lip reader, had no idea as a lip reader until everybody put masks on. And then I went and got a hearing check after the tinnitus, the really bothersome tinnitus started. And I found that in the mid to low range that I have normal hearing, and in the upper end, I've got severe hearing loss.
And what did the ENT discover? Did you see an ear, nose, and throat doctor? What was their perspective on what was happening?
I'd already been working with you guys. Their perspective was that the tinnitus is due to the hearing loss, nothing else. She asked a bunch of questions about, is it symmetrical and other things. And as soon as she saw my hearing test and asked all those questions, she came to the conclusion that I was, that was the cause of it. The hearing loss was the cause. And then I told her what you and I were doing, or what me and Dr. Tracy were doing. And the ENT was very pleased with that and basically said, keep doing it.
Excellent. We're going to get into that in a moment of where Treble Health came involved and what your experiences were after that. Let's talk about hyperacusis. Do you have any sound sensitivity or did you previously to sounds like water running, dishes clanking, or anything like that?
No, I notice them now. I think it's mostly from having hearing aids, but it's not anything that I would describe as, intrusive or painful or anything.
Okay. And then were you experiencing significant stress prior to the onset of your tinnitus? Let's say for the 3 to 6 months leading up to it, was there significant stress in your life or not really?
No, not really. Just kind of normal life.
Okay. And could you previously significantly change your tinnitus by moving your head, your neck, or your jaw?
No, it's pretty much and still is the same kind of no matter what I do.
And has tinnitus affected your sleep? Falling asleep, staying asleep, or going back to sleep if you wake up in the night?
Yes. The first couple of weeks I was getting probably 3 30-minute cat naps at night, and that was it. And then since working with you guys, I've been sleeping through the night with sound therapy, and I have I'm still on sleeping medication, which that's my next goal, is to get off the sleeping medication.
Great. So the questions I just walked us through are some of what we typically do in an intake at Treble Health. We've looked at what are the most important questions that help us treat and target your tinnitus specifically based on the cause. So going through those questions in our minds, we're sorting out, okay, this probably isn't somatic or somatosensory tinnitus. Okay, there's probably not a medical red flag that we're missing here. Everything seems in check. And that gears us towards certain therapies or treatments, which we're going to get into in a moment for what works for you. Randy, now's a good time. Please give us an introduction of who you are and really what you've done in your life as a professional.
Okay. I've been in the Air Force, or I was in the Air Force for 26 years. I was a fighter pilot that whole time. And then I transitioned out of when I retired from the Air Force, I transitioned to being an airline pilot. And that's what I do now is fly every day. So that's part of probably my hearing loss, is just being around jet engines for 35 years, been married for 30, 35 to almost 36 years, 2 kids, 2 grandkids. So I guess that's about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy. And all right, you painted a picture of what was going on in terms of these different elements of tinnitus, different factors that affect tinnitus. What was your experience before you reached out to us at Treble Health? What was going on for you? What were the day-to-day struggles or challenges?
Okay. I still remember the day is March 13th, where my tinnitus went from something I'd had for about 15 years. I would call it on a scale 1 to 10, probably 1. I could hear it in a super quiet room. I'd notice in a super quiet room, I could probably hear it if I went looking for it mentally anytime. And then, but that afternoon, it went from a 1 to probably an 8, kind of disturbing, but I was in the middle of doing something. I was busy. And then at night, that night, I laid down in no less than 30 seconds. I was back up on my feet. The noise, and as soon as the lights went off, and the ringing, to the point that I couldn't even lay down, and I couldn't stay still. And I was up all night. That night I had probably what I would say is a series of panic attacks, where to put it in frank terms, I was worried about losing my mind, because, I get to thinking that, and I knew tinnitus because I had it at a real low level. I knew it was incurable, and I had all these crazy thoughts going on, and the thoughts, I kind of went, I let my mind go to an extreme, I guess. Anyway, I did that. The next night was a little bit better as far as panic attacks, but no better as far as sleep. I kind of worked into a rhythm where I was getting about 30 minutes of sleep 3 times during the night. So I was estimating for about 2 weeks, I slept for an hour and a half. I went to the doctor. That was on Sunday, the 13th. I went to a doctor. It wasn't my family doctor because her office was closed that day. I went to a walk-in clinic. She prescribed me a super powerful antihistamine, which also was supposed to help me sleep, which it did a little bit. It calmed me down some. And then I went to my regular doctor. I waited about 10 days before I went to her. And she's a great doctor and somebody I've been going to for a long time. And she prescribed me sleeping medication. And at that point, it had been almost 2 weeks really since I'd had more than just 30 minutes of sleep at a time. And that didn't work. So I decided I was going to her every day until I found something work. So I went in the next day, got a more powerful sleep medication, went in the next day. She put me on Zoloft and a more powerful sleep. And I told her that the way I described it is I felt like I had a caffeine IV in my arm 24/7. I was only sleeping an hour and a half, and I was super tired, but I could not even hardly sit down. I couldn't really relax and do anything. And to be honest, my doctor was sympathetic or empathetic, but really couldn't quite comprehend that. And then she put me on kind of the largest dose of Ambien that you could be on. And with Ambien, I would sleep 2 to 3 hours with that full dose. She was surprised that I couldn't do that.
And Randy, let's check in for a moment. So what was the reason you couldn't fall asleep? Was it thoughts about tinnitus? Was it something else?
It's just the pure noise of the tinnitus. The panic attacks and the negative thoughts were kind of starting to get less as that 2-week period went on, but it's just the pure noise. It was just really loud. And it seemed to be worse when the lights went out.
Did you find any sound therapies at night? Again, this is earlier on in your
Yes.
process here, but did you find any sort of sound that could help you sleep at night, or not really?
Not really. My wife and I have always slept with a sound machine going through a Bluetooth speaker, but it was completely at the wrong frequency, and it's through an app on my phone. And I didn't even really think about looking for other stuff on that thing. I do know that a couple of times my wife said that my head was almost up on the nightstand, and I didn't realize it, but I was trying to get super close to that noise so that it would cover up the tinnitus.
Yeah. So let's bring it into the next part of this journey. So you just laid out the first few weeks, what we call the urgent care phase, when things are serious and it becomes a all hands on deck medical problem that we want to do everything we can, because if you're not sleeping well, and 2 hours or less a night is certainly a serious case of insomnia, then it's hard to get better with tinnitus. It's hard to do the things that allow your brain to reduce the signal and habituate if you're dealing with such insomnia. So talk us about what happened next. What was the transition after leading up to eventually finding us and changing and optimizing some of your approach?
Yeah. Well, this was 2 weeks and 2 days on a Tuesday. So I finally started researching it online, and I'm a researcher. Kind of my personality type is I study and research everything. I hadn't done this just
We can
because.
tell by your lovely library, and I hope
Yeah,
you've read most of those books because that
I
would take
have.
me years.
But I didn't research this. And my wife was kind of shocked because it was kind of traumatic. Every time I tried to start looking at it, the idea that this is my new life was just more than I could handle. But one day, it's Tuesday, and I got on YouTube, and I'd already seen, like a few days prior, these tinnitus maskers and these videos, and they didn't do anything for me. And then I found your video, and it said 5 steps to improving tinnitus. And the very first step was sound therapy. And so that's the first time I'd ever heard that kind of a concept. So I listened to your short video. I went to your all's website and I scheduled a consult the next morning. And then I started exploring sound therapy. So then I just went through one after the other YouTube videos. And then finally I hit on one that was kind of like, oh my goodness, that actually feels good, for lack of a better word. And so I found 2 or 3 of those. And that night, I slept with the headphones that just come with your iPhone. And so it was like sleeping with a walnut in your ear. And I'm a side sleeper, but it was still better than anything I experienced for the previous 2 weeks. So my ears kept waking me up because of the pain of the headphones, but my tinnitus was masked almost completely. And so that was the first night I got sleep. The next afternoon, I have these Bluetooth speakers, headphones that I put in that go in my ear. And I put those in and put that going and put one of the YouTube videos that I found going. And I slept for 3 hours sitting up in a chair. I didn't even, not my feet up, not nothing. Just as soon as that sound happened, I was able to relax. And then that was also that next morning and afternoon is when I started talking to the doctors that you work with. And my first experience, and I don't remember his name, but I got through Zoom with him and talking. He was the first medical professional that I talked to that knew what I was going through and understood that what I was going through was real and it was a real problem. And it's not that the other, my doctor didn't think it was real. She didn't have an understanding of how critical, those are my words, that they are. But as soon as I talked to one of your doctors, I immediately felt better just knowing that I wasn't, that I wasn't making something up or that it wasn't, it was real.
And that it's something that people dedicate their lives and professional careers to study and improving and knowing all the details of it, because you could never learn all the details of this rather mysterious medical condition to most doctors, right? So I think that's also part of it, is saying, okay, I'm not alone. This is a real thing. There's a real guide and a real path forward for things I can do. That's a lot of the feedback that we hear from the community too.
Yeah. I didn't even know what an audiologist did. I have a friend who's an audiologist actually here locally. And after 2 weeks of working with my doctor, she didn't send me to an audiologist. She sent me to an ENT, which I didn't have that appointment till about a month into this. But it was your video and then talking to that doctor early on that I go, wait a minute, these are the guys I need to be seeing. And then I talked to Dr. Tracy that afternoon, and she, one, understood what I was going through. And two, she wasn't like, well, there's no cure, let's give you more drugs. She was like, no, there's therapy for this. She and I set several goals of me to get to where I could be. And she was very confident that she could do that and that she could introduce me to the tools that would do that. So that was, like I said, that was Wednesday, 2.5 weeks into this thing. And that was the first ray of hope really that I had. And then from there, it's been great. I don't know, but yeah, from there, it's been a progressive path that's got me to where I am right now.
And how long ago was that? From when this started until today? How many months ago did your tinnitus start?
It started the middle of March, and this is the end of May. So I think I've been working with Dr. Tracy for 2 solid months, and then I was on my own for two solid weeks. Got it. So about 2.5 months.
Got it. Okay, so your case represents, all right, you were proactive in this. It was a few weeks of serious struggle. You kept looking for the right kind of help. You were proactive. You connected to us. You connected to Treble Health. We worked with you. At which time later, you and I got connected because we said, hey, Randy has a good story to share and a message of hope, a success story, a positive story for others who may have not had the opportunity to get the right kind of help or who may have a very similar history to you. So in those last 2 months working with Dr. Tracy on our team as an audiologist at Treble, what have you learned? What have you learned about this condition? And what have you seen about its ability to improve or change over time?
Okay. Well, I've learned that while it is true that there is no cure for it yet, there is therapy for it. And the therapy is a real help. And Dr. Tracy gave me hope. We've done two things, I would say. You would probably maybe professionally talk about it a little differently, but the first one is the sound therapy. I have hearing aids now. That has helped a bunch. I didn't know that I needed hearing aids, and I didn't know that this would help. In the morning when I get up, if my tinnitus is still an 8 out of 10, as soon as I put my hearing aids on, it becomes a 5 out of 10. And then throughout the day, I'll have different sound therapy programs going, and pretty much all day long, I don't notice it. The other thing is kind of the CBT, the cognitive behavior therapy, has helped me a bunch to take and kind of reframe some of the negative thinking. And, that's something that Dr. Tracy has talked about and stepped me through. Most of them have been very easy to get through. The one that I can't, the thought right now that I still and probably never really will be able to entertain is the idea of I need silence. And I've changed those words into I need relief. And I can get relief if I'm somewhere and I don't have something, the sound therapy going or whatever. And if I need relief, I can get that. And, for the first 2 weeks, I didn't know if that would ever be possible again. I'm still having trouble. Well, I don't put it this way. I don't have trouble sleeping, but I do sleep with sound therapy going in all night long. It's Dr. Tracy gave me a bunch of ideas for how to sleep comfortably with things in my ears. I've tried the sound pillow. She got me on that. That didn't work. I tried different things. I've now found that I have a headband that actually has things that go in my ears, and then the headband kind of holds them on. That's what's worked best for me. It's a Bluetooth connection to my phone, so there's no cord. That has worked great. Even in the middle of an ambient sleep, if I had an earphone come out, that one ear would wake me up. And sometimes in a really short order, just from the noise. And I would, get back up, or not get up, just put it back in and go back to sleep. But with this headband and everything, basically I've got it down to, I've worked it where the process works pretty good, where I can sleep comfortably. I have 2 videos that run back to back at night that work really well.
Well, what you're sharing here represents, number one, you had a positive response to sound therapy, and that's common. Vast majority of those who really try a sound therapy plan have a positive response. For you, it wasn't only at night where you had the trouble, but it was also during the day. And, frankly, there's people who have bothersome tinnitus who have never tried tinnitus maskers or hearing aids. And if I'm one of those people and I hear you say, well, I have an 8 out of 10 and I put them in and it's a 5 out of 10, that might gain my interest here, which makes me ask you, there may be people just like you who haven't had either the fortune, the opportunity, or the financial, benefit of being able to find a good professional, reach out to them, get the right kind of help. What kind of advice do you have for those who might be struggling in a similar position to where you were a few months ago?
I would, like you said, if you can, I had fortunate, I have a friend who's an audiologist who got me in hearing aids within 3 or 4 days, as soon as I realized an audiologist can help. And he was great. He said he's not an expert in tinnitus, and he recommended I keep going with you guys. And so I've had 2 audiologists, one just pure hearing aids, and then obviously Treble Health. My advice really to somebody is to get with Treble Health. It's inexpensive and it's super helpful. And then if some reason somebody's not comfortable or doing that, I would say find a sound therapy, go to YouTube and keep going. If you have to try 20 of them or more until you find one that mixes well with your tinnitus, that's free and easy and super important. It was for me. Like I said, that first day that I started using it, I fell asleep just sitting up for 3 hours and didn't even move because I hadn't slept for 2 weeks really. And it was this mixing that was able for me to sit there and my mind to calm down and my whole body to calm down. But if somebody's listening to this, they know if they're having trouble, it's a full body experience. It's not just your ears, it's your mind. And then that kind of plays into everything, your adrenaline. And so that sound therapy would be my number one advice for somebody. And it's basically inexpensive. The only thing that is trial and error is if you need it to sleep, is just finding something that is comfortable for the way you sleep and to, way you lay down at night and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy. And for those listening, for those watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below what kind of sound therapy works for you. Is it hearing aids? Is it tinnitus maskers? Is it a speaker, a sound machine? Is it a sleep headband? Let us know. Randy, you brought some props with you. I believe you have the sleep headband and you have your hearing aids. Would you be able to show us how those look and how you use them?
Yeah, this is the headband that I use. I've tried them all. Here's the controls on the front. But the thing is, for me, that was important is this goes in my ear. I tried a headband that has the speakers built in, and my tinnitus is loud enough without when I don't have a sound therapy going, that if I would roll over a little bit and that one speaker would just move off of one ear, it would wake me up. So I needed something that stayed with me. The other thing is, most of these that you buy, they hold in place by the pressure by plugging up your ear canal. And I don't know if you can see that, but that one is really small on the end of it, because if my ears are plugged, it made the tinnitus a lot worse, even with something playing into it. So what this does is I put this in my ear and then I pull the headband down and the headband holds it in place.
Would you mind putting it on for us so we can see how it looks?
Yeah. So it doesn't need a piece of rubber to hold it in place. But I put these in like this and I turn it on, and then it connects Bluetooth to a YouTube video. And then I put it like that. My 4-year-old grandson came running in when we were visiting their house, and his first thing was, "Pop, you look like a girl." But other than that, I don't care what it looks like, to be honest, because I can sleep with it on.
That's right. That's right. Well, that was good. Thank you for showing us that. How about the hearing aids? Do you have those available?
Yeah, the hearing aids, I got them on right there. They're the kind that fit. They look like this. I don't know if you can tell in this video, but
yes, we can see that.
Okay, so it goes in my ear, and then rests up on top of it. And then these have different sounds that are built into them. And then I can also, through Bluetooth, I can connect my phone, and during the day I can play different YouTube videos. The ones during the day, I don't like to use the ones at night, just because I don't want to get tired of the ones at night, and they work really well. But I have found several that work well. On one of your videos that I saw, you gave and I don't remember off the top of my head, you gave a website that you can go to and find out the frequency of your tinnitus. And I did that. It was a little bit hard, just because it's kind of hard to hear your tinnitus in that same time. But I came that frequency. My frequency was between about 5,500 kilohertz to not quite 6,000. And I took that to my audiologist here in town, and he was able, with his computer that hooks into this, he was able to build into this and kind of refine the white noise that this generates at that 6,000 hertz. And he put some 3,000 hertz, I think, was another one that he beefed up, because I guess it's a harmonic of that. Anyway, he built something specifically for me, for my tinnitus. And what I found is that both of the YouTube videos and this one that's built into this, I found that if it's real close to the frequency of my tinnitus, I can turn the volume way down, which helps with the fatigue, I guess you will. There can be a little fatigue. It's better than the tinnitus, but every once in a while the noises themselves can be fatiguing. But having the videos and then the built-in here kind of tuned to where mine is allows me to turn the volume way down, but still have it mixing. And that makes both sleeping and during the day a lot more enjoyable or peaceful.
Yeah. Great. We love these tips. I really appreciate you sharing all of that. As an audiologist myself, and at Treble, we have a team of audiologists. Yeah, you're right that we can adjust the settings of the devices, whether it's hearing aids or tinnitus maskers. We can adjust those devices to provide a better sound therapy what you just shared is important, that, hey, with this sound therapy that was custom made for me, my tinnitus masking levels can be much softer. Well, that's just less distracting or overwhelming for your system, like you shared.
Yeah.
You are a pilot. You have been for many years. So are you still able to fly? Are you still flying with tinnitus? How's that going?
I have not flown with tinnitus yet, and that's because I was on Zoloft initially to kind of help with the anxiety, and then I'm now off that. And then been talking with Dr. Tracy. That was one of our goals when I first met, was I want to get off of everything. So my next one is I've dialed down my sleeping medication from Ambien to Lunesta. And then this week, my goal is to get off Lunesta. And then once I'm off of both those, then I'll go back to flying. I don't think, the first 2 weeks, I didn't know how I would operate. Well, to put it this way, I could not have operated in a cockpit. And two, you may not think about this, but I was thinking I couldn't sleep in a hotel room by myself, which I do multiple times during the week when I'm working. So now I could fly no problem with it. And I think quickly getting to the point where I'll be able to sleep without medication, and I'll be able to sleep in a hotel room. I'll have to take this headband with me, obviously, for now, and, work through that. But I'm hoping to do that here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, excellent. So for those watching, if you're on a flight sometime in 2022 or later, just check the cockpit, check the pilot and say, Randy from YouTube, is that you? You never know. You never know. Well, you had mentioned some different products. You'd mentioned the sleep headband and hearing aids. So in the description of the YouTube video for this podcast, we'll include links to those to make sure that individuals can check that out, as well as more links to Treble Health to sign up for a free consultation with one of our team members. We're more than happy to learn about your tinnitus, provide some different options for relief and hearing aids, one-on-one CBT techniques for counseling, therapy. It all matters. It all matters. It all makes a difference. Randy, I really appreciate you taking your time to share your story. And the last words here are yours.
Okay. Well, I am continuing to make improvement every day. I feel like Treble Health literally gave me my life back. I was questioning my entire future and what it would be like. And now I no longer question that at all. My daytime, except for having hearing aids in, my daytime life is completely back to normal. My nighttime life is, or my sleeping is I'd say 90% there. If I plan on, I've gotten to the point where the sound therapy at night's no problem. I think getting off the medication is the next step, and that'll be no problem at all. But I'm truly thankful for Treble Health, because not only is this a complicated issue, it's an issue that from my experience, I didn't find a lot of people that knew about it. I had some good, well-intended, empathetic medical professionals around me who really just were unable to help until I found Treble Health. So I recommend you guys to anybody that would ask. I tell them about Treble Health.
Thanks, Randy. Keep up the good work. As you know, this is a long-term marathon here with reducing tinnitus. So keep it up, and we're all rooting for even more progress down the road.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching today's video with Treble Health. Check out our next video by clicking the button on this screen or another recommended video. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much. See you on the next video.